In 2019, Clara Jennings was an antique collector known for her keen eye and love for rare, unique items. While others spent their evenings on Netflix, Clara scoured obscure online marketplaces and estate sales. One night, as she browsed a hidden auction site rumored to specialize in items of unknown origin, she stumbled across a peculiar listing. Lot 423, the mask. Bidding starts at $1. Warning, not for the faint-hearted. The image was blurry, showing what appeared to be an ancient mask, carved from dark wood and adorned with faded crimson patterns. The description was cryptic. Believed to be ceremonial, found in the ruins of an abandoned village. Do not wear. Clara's heart raced. She had always been drawn to the macabre. Without hesitation, she placed a bid. To her surprise, she won the mask for $15. The seller's username was simply Whisper. 3 days later, a small package arrived at Clara's doorstep. It was wrapped in plain brown paper with no return address. The mask inside was far more intricate than the photo suggested. The wood was smooth to the touch, but unnervingly cold, and the crimson patterns looked like dried blood. Clara decided to place the mask on her living room wall, but as soon as she hung it, an overwhelming unease settled over her home. She dismissed it as her imagination, attributing the feeling to the mask's eerie design. That night, as she lay in bed, she heard a faint sound, a whisper, almost too quiet to make out. She froze, her pulse quickening. Straining her ears, she realized the sound was coming from the living room. Gathering her courage, she tiptoed down the hallway. The whispers grew louder as she approached. When she reached the living room, she found the mask, still on the wall. But it was no longer facing forward. It had turned to look at her. Clara's breath caught in her throat. She was sure it had been facing the other direction when she hung it. Trying to calm herself, she convinced herself the mask had shifted due to an uneven nail. She adjusted it, securing it tightly this time, and returned to bed. But sleep didn't come. Every time Clara closed her eyes, she saw the mask. Not as it hung on the wall, but on a face, moving, speaking, screaming. When morning came, Clara decided to investigate the mask's origin. She contacted the seller through the auction site, but her message was met with an automated reply. User does not exist. She searched online for any information about ceremonial masks resembling hers, but found nothing. That evening, as she sat researching, her laptop froze. The screen went black before a single word appeared in blood-red text. Listen. Her speakers crackled, and then came the whisper. You brought me here. Now let me in. Panicking, Clara slammed the laptop shut. She turned to the mask on the wall, her mind racing. It was just a piece of wood, wasn't it? She decided to get rid of it. She wrapped the mask in a towel and threw it into a box. Driving to the edge of town, she found an old junkyard and hurled the box into a dumpster. She felt a strange sense of relief as she drove away, believing she had rid herself of the object. But when Clara returned home, her blood ran cold. The mask was back on the wall, staring directly at her. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. A message from an unknown number read, "You can't discard me." Desperate, Clara turned to her friend Marcus, a historian with a penchant for the supernatural. Marcus was skeptical, but agreed to examine the mask. When he arrived, he immediately sensed something was off. This isn't just a mask, Clara," he said, running his fingers over the crimson markings. These symbols, they're protective runes, but they've been corrupted. Whoever created this didn't intend for it to protect. They meant for it to bind. Bind what? Clara asked, her voice trembling. A spirit. Or worse. Marcus suggested performing a cleansing ritual. They gathered candles, sage and salt, creating a protective circle in the living room. Marcus began chanting, and for a moment it seemed to work. The air grew lighter, and the oppressive feeling lifted. But then the whispers returned, louder, angrier. The flames of the candles flickered violently before extinguishing. The mask fell from the wall with a loud thud, and the room plunged into darkness. In the silence that followed, a guttural voice echoed, "You cannot banish me. You invited me." From that night on, Clara's life became a nightmare. Objects moved on their own. Doors slammed shut without warning. The whispers followed her everywhere, growing louder each time she tried to ignore them. She stopped sleeping, her once bright eyes now hollow and sunken. Marcus tried to help, but even he began to feel the mask's influence. One night, while researching, he saw a shadow move across Clara's apartment, even though they were alone. "Clara," he said, his voice shaking, "we need to destroy this thing." But the mask had other plans. As Marcus reached for it, a searing pain shot through his hand. He recoiled, his palm marked with a strange symbol that burned like fire. "It's alive," he whispered, horrified. Determined to uncover the mask's origins, Marcus reached out to a colleague who specialized in occult artifacts. The colleague identified the mask as a relic from a long-extinct cult. They believed the mask was a vessel, the colleague explained over the phone. It allowed their god to manifest in the physical world, but the ritual was never completed. If the mask is active, someone must have reawakened it. Clara's stomach sank. The auction site, the cellar. She had reawakened it. The colleague warned them that destroying the mask could unleash the entity trapped within. "You have to complete the ritual to seal it again. But be warned, the entity will do everything it can to stop you." That night, Clara and Marcus prepared for the ritual. They followed the instructions from the occult expert, drawing an intricate sigil on the floor and surrounding it with candles. The mask sat in the center of the sigil, its hollow eyes seemingly watching their every move. As Clara began chanting the incantation, the room grew icy cold. The whispers turned into screams, deafening and relentless. Shadows danced along the walls, forming grotesque shapes that clawed at the edges of the circle. The mask began to levitate, twisting and writhing as if resisting the ritual. Clara's voice faltered, but Marcus grabbed her hand. "Don't stop!" he shouted over the cacophony. Suddenly, the mask exploded with a blinding light, and Clara was thrown backward. When she opened her eyes, the room was silent. The mask lay shattered in the center of the sigil. For weeks, Clara and Marcus believed they had succeeded. The whispers were gone, and life seemed to return to normal. But one night, as Clara prepared for bed, she noticed something strange in her bathroom mirror. Her reflection didn't move. It stared at her, its lips curling into a sinister smile. And then it whispered, "You let me in." And so, the story ends? Or does it? What would you do if you saw something strange in your mirror tonight? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying stories. And remember, never look into a mirror alone at night. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.